And today we have a very special guest. This is Michael Marcangelo alongside Joe Malkin, Craig D'Alessandro, and Karen Guregian is back. Is this the fourth or fifth time? I think it's the fourth. It's our favorite. You're our
Four.
favorite guest. Yeah,
Four.
you're our favorite guest. And you are fresh off the heels of one of the most entertaining non-answers and press conference history. So I wanted to start there, if it's okay.
Start any place.
I just have a question because you asked a pretty easy question. What are your thoughts on Mac Jones? What do you hope for him going forward? Would you rather, Karen, the answer that you got from Matt Patricia today, or an answer from Bill Belichick when he'll just grunt at you and say, "Well, we'll see what happens."
Well, they're kind of both frustrating and entertaining in their own way. I mean, like, Matt Patricia just went on and on and on and on and on today, praising everything about Mac Jones except what he's literally done on the field. Has he made progress? He basically talked about him. It's like he was his son, but we didn't find out anything about how he's playing football. And that's all we were trying to glean from him, because watching him, he's obviously taken a step back from last year. He's regressed. It's obvious to all of us. But for whatever reason, I wrote about it. Either they're not going to cop to it because it reflects poorly on them, or they still have hopes that they can get Mac back into some viable place, and they're trying to boost his confidence.
Yeah. So based off of what you've seen so far, would you say that he's regressed because of his abilities or because of the lack of, I don't know, I don't want to be too harsh here, but the lack of coaching?
Go ahead.
I mean, what did they expect when they had two non-offensive related people now as his coach? So in your opinion, is this play related or is it coaching related, Mac Jones regression?
It's all of the above. It really is. I mean, I think we went over this kind of last time too, in that, Bill Belichick having two guys who've never coached offense before doesn't in his brain think that's a big deal. Great coaches,
Right.
Good coaches can coach anything. Look at him. He can coach anything. But it's a far cry to have Matt Patricia and Joe Judge in the same breath as Bill Belichick. So, and the other thing, I think he kind of maybe didn't think enough that calling offense was a lot more complex and difficult or different than calling defensive plays. I mean, you really have to have a feel for what's happening and be able to react to what's happening. And also just having to know, what's going to work against what you're seeing. It's just not just, call a 3-4 front, call a 4-3 front, throw 8 defensive backs on the field because it's third down. It's not quite like that. I mean, you have to have, as I said, you have to have a feel for how to call plays. You have to have a feel for how to get receivers open if they're not getting open. And I think between that and probably, Mac from the start, probably thinking this was going to be a disaster. I mean, again, you had an offensive guru in Josh McDaniels, or at least somebody who had a clue about offense. Somebody that Mac worked well together and had a very good rookie year. And to go from that to guys who are trying to learn on the fly, it just boggles your mind.
So why then, here's the tough question, why then, is Bailey Zappi seemingly playing better when he's in the game compared to Mac Jones?
I think it's a couple things. One, I think, because he's a rookie and doesn't have the experience, he's basically running a basic offense. It's not hard. They're not putting him in. You don't see him, with 5 wide, back in the backfield with no help next to him in the shotgun. You don't see certain sets. They're not putting him in certain things that, for lack of a better description, more complex offenses have. So, but to Bailey Zappi's credit, in the simplified version of the Patriots offense, he looked good for several games. He looked poised. He looked comfortable. He had a kind of really good feel in the pocket, a good pocket presence, knowing how to step up, when not to. So, he saved their bacon, basically, for, that stretch of games. They should have beaten Green Bay.
Right.
Yep.
But, then they won. They beat the Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions. But I think the most impressive thing was, like, Cleveland stopped the run and basically made Zappi throw the football to beat them. And he did. But then they came up against the Bears and, everything kind of fell flat that game.
Wouldn't you then, I understand Zappi's a 4th round rookie. Mac's a 1st round sophomore. Wouldn't you then, if an offense is working with one guy and they do play a similar game, it's not the same, but it's similar, wouldn't you then run the same offense and let Mac succeed with the offense that's working?
Yeah, a lot of us question that. At least start from the baseline, gain some confidence, if you think about last year, okay, Josh McDaniels held his hand, basically, Mac Jones' hand, and he didn't put him in too many complex situations. It was basically do what Mac Jones does best, use his mind and use his, quick ability to process and deliver the football accurately, which he did. There was nothing, again, they weren't looking to throw the ball downfield. They were just looking to complete passes in the most efficient manner possible. And Mac excelled in that, doing that. Now, of course, year 2, you expect you can add some things in, some wrinkles, make it a little more complex. But completely changing the verbiage, completely changing the playbook. Again, right from jump, you lost Mac, basically. That's just my opinion. Right from jump, you lost him. And at some point, you're trying to win him, at least mentally, get him back in the ball game and saying, don't worry, it's going to be fine. But they just added insult to injury by, Belichick refused to say he was going to be the starter when he was healthy. And this was before Bailey Zappi did anything.
Yep.
So, again, all these mind games or whatever the heck they were doing, I just think have fallen flat in their face.
So if you're Mac Jones, right, and you're coming from Alabama, and that coaching staff always put him in a position to succeed, right? Never got him in trouble. First year in the NFL with Josh McDaniels, lesser talent on the skill positions, but pretty much the same thing. What I want to know and get your take on is, last year Mac Jones was completing, I think, like 66% of his passes. He was 76% completion percentage in play action. if I'm not an offensive coordinator and I don't know how to do anything, why would I not at least call more play action plays this year? Because obviously he proved that he could do it. So why do you think, based off of what you just told us about, the game plan with Bailey, why are there less play action plays when Mac Jones is on the field as opposed to when Bailey Zappi is?
That's a mystery. All of us are saying the same thing and asking the same questions, but not getting any answers, of course.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's baffling. It's mind-boggling. Why, again, he was so good in play action last year. And then all of a sudden, you see it once or twice a game. Or what they were saying is, well, you can't do it against teams that blitz. Well, that's garbage too.
Right.
But that's what that's the excuse when we ask. They're game plan specific. It might work better against some defense, some not. It worked against every defense last year. It worked against every defense with Tom Brady.
Right.
So again, we don't get it.
That's one of the biggest things that frustrates me about Bill Belichick and how he runs his ship down there is that he treats the fan base. He kind of treats everybody like they're lesser than him, kind of dumber than him. We've been around and been watching his brand of football for 25 years now. We've been watching it every Sunday, every Monday night, every Thursday night. Like, we're not dumb. We see it. We see what he's trying to run. We see the differences in offense and defense. And he still tries to pull the wool over our eyes with some of these answers. And to that end, based on the answer or non-answer you got from Matt Patricia today, when you said, "Thanks, Matt," what did you really want to say to him?
I can't say it in this venue.
Fair enough. That's kind of the answer I expected. I thought I'd ask anyway.
Well, I did follow up, and I was almost rude. I jumped in on him and said, "Well, yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. All that flowery
Yeah, I loved it.
is good, right? But has he progressed?" Didn't get an answer,
and he didn't get that's which tells me honestly, reading between the lines of some of their answers, he hasn't progressed. I think they know he's regressed, and the problem is I don't think they're going to take any of the heat for it, and they're
trying not to
for it.
No, they are taking heat.
Oh no, I know they're taking heat, but they're not going to recognize the heat. Let's put it that way. And Mac's gonna take the brunt of it because they've already been deflecting towards him as it is.
Yeah. Well, if you can read into these things a million different ways. Why can't they just say, well, it's been a process, with a new coaching staff and a new system and trying to work things out and him getting hurt. We're not where we're at, where we want to be right now, but we're still shooting for that, as opposed to the garbage that they just keep throwing out there. Right? I mean, wouldn't they a little bit different if they just said, look, we've had some setbacks. We're trying new stuff. We're doing this. Yeah, it's not going quite like we hoped. But we're still fighting and we're still hopeful we're going to get to that point. Why can't you just say something like that? As opposed to, oh, he's great. He's a great leader. Well, that's not what we're asking.
Right.
Here's my thing with Bill. By the way, I can talk on these shows, by the way.
All right.
He's been hosting lately. It's been outstanding.
Yeah. So with Bill, I think that we just got used to it over the last 20 years, and I'm sure you've been covering them even further than that. Like, he's been consistent with the way he's covered, talked about this team for God knows how long. That worked when they were winning Super Bowls. That worked when they were getting the AFC championships every year. They haven't been competitive since Thanksgiving 2018. It's not going to work anymore.
Right. Well, yes, he has 6 rings. Yes, he has all those championships. Yes, they were front runners every single year. but that only lasts. And I think they probably gave him the first post Brady year. But since then, again, it's a "what have you done for me lately" crowd always.
Right.
And maybe they can think that they can rest on their laurels, or maybe they think that they can sort of, or Bill can get away with having coaches who aren't offensive guys coaching his future quarterback.
What laurels are left? That's my question to you. I mean, how do you strip away? I guess it was a complex offense. That's what everybody says. That's why they said Chad Ochocinco was a great practice player, but he could never put it together on the field. You had a rookie that could. So
who excelled.
Yeah. And why strip him away? And this is a long-winded question. You were used to each other, so you know that I like to ramble. But when you say, like, I wish that they would just give us an honest answer, but wouldn't that open them up to the follow-up question by you or anyone else in the media that says, Bill, why, after spending $250 million in guaranteed money in free agency and seeing success, why did you think it would be a good idea to strip down the offense? What do you say there?
Well, they kept saying, it was going to be better for guys like Al Galore and Jonnu Smith and who, all these guys that they spent all this money on that didn't quite thrive. But, like, who's the most important player in the offense? Let's think about that. The quarterback. So, I mean, that was their cover, but you have to wonder, was it the cover that the two coaches that he brought in, A, couldn't learn it, and B, couldn't teach it? Because they didn't get it, right? Or didn't want to have to go through and learn all the complexities themselves so that they could teach it. So they dumbed everything down, changed it to a more suitable thing for, Matt Patricia to try and run. But you basically killed your quarterback in the process. I guess they just thought he would adapt and wouldn't, have so many questions or be so put off by the whole thing. Usually, you're foot soldiers. You do what you're told. You're Bailey Zappi. Whatever, yes, sir, no, sir. Whatever you want. Except Mac isn't cut out like that. He wants to know answers. He wants to know why they're doing things. But it's a lot of it is so he understands himself.
Right.
Why are we doing this to the offense? I was doing really good in what we had last year. So explain it to me. And maybe the answers just didn't satisfy him.
Well, maybe it doesn't satisfy him because they don't have the answers for him, and not even satisfying answers, but the right answers. Because you're asking with a second-year quarterback. Not only is he now working with his second group of offensive coaches, they're not even offensive coaches. And I know we keep coming back to it and we keep saying it, but you got a second-year guy that played at Alabama. I mean, his offensive coordinator was Bill O'Brien. We're not talking about some schlub. Then he came into the league and he had Josh McDaniels, who, sure, I had a lot of personal issues with last year in his play calling, and right now he doesn't look so good out in Vegas. But man, he's an improvement over whatever the hell they got going on down there now. So to me, it's just the fact that they can't give him the answers. And sure, Zappi's like, yes, sir, yes, coach, I'm going to go and do it. But Max already had a taste of that good offensive coordinator.
Right. And again, today's athlete is different than yesteryear's athlete, who they were good foot soldiers, all of them. And I don't think many people would question if, they brought in a bunch of guys who didn't coach offense. You just went with the flow and did the best you could. Today's athlete is going to ask why.
Right.
And is going to pout if the answer isn't, acceptable. So Does that mean, it's all on the coaches? No, I think some of it is on Mac too. Get your head around it. It's not going to change. So at some point you have to sort of accept it and move on. And I think he was getting to the point of accepting it and moving on when he got hurt. So, but the other thing is watching him, it is a little alarming that his pocket presence has disappeared. He takes off at the first hint of trouble or the first hint of pressure. And he's either holding the ball too long because he's thinking too much, because it's almost like, well, they want me to do this. Or now he's so petrified of making a mistake that, again, it's just sad to watch what he's what's the word? Evolved into or devolved into?
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, again, we watched something completely different last year.
Right. How much of it is because I do notice that he kind of looks like remember Brady in like 2012, 2013 when he was seeing ghosts and ducking in the pocket a lot?
Yeah.
How much of it is what you just said about Mac overthinking it and being terrified, to make a mistake and not lose his job, versus he's been sacked more in the last 9 games than he has in his entire career as a quarterback.
Well, I think that's contributing as well. But if you remember, like last year at the start of the year, I think Trent Brown was hurt, or a couple guys were hurt on the line, and Mac was getting smoked in those early games. Honest to God, I mean, he was getting killed, and it was like something's got to happen. Well, Trent Brown came back. I think they made some other move or some other adjustment, and once he got protection, they went on a 7-game win streak.
Right.
So, basically he could run the offense, but I didn't see that same, the walls are closing in guy. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe he's just been hit so many times now that it's finally penetrated. But as I said, I think it's partly that. It's partly now, wanting to do whatever the coaches tell him because Bailey Zappi is a threat. And he's just out there. He's not relaxed. And again, you can just see it in his every movement out there.
So
at least we can. The coaches can't. They think
well, they see it. They just refuse to see it because they have
they refuse to acknowledge it. Yeah.
Yep.
A plan or whatever they want to call it. So now when we talked to you at the beginning of the season, we've kind of run through a lot of these same things: the Matt Patricia, Joe Judge angle, the Mac Jones angle, and we discussed with you then, hey, we'll talk to you the bye week. Well, now it's the bye week. We're 9 weeks in, halfway through the season. The team's 5-4. Are they where you expected them to be? And is this the making of a 9-8, 8-9 season?
Well, I think I had them for 9-8, if I'm not mistaken.
You
I
did.
think I might have had them for 6-3 at this point, or I don't know if it was 5-4, but it was close. And now comes the hard part. But all of a sudden, the hard part isn't quite as daunting as it presented itself to be in the beginning of the season. Well, I mean, the Jets are tougher, so that's one thing. But the Cardinals and the Raiders are woefully bad. If they play decently, they might actually win those 2 games.
Yep.
Josh Allen has this elbow problem.
Yep.
So, maybe they take 1 of 2 from Buffalo. So now all of a sudden, again, if they can get their act sufficiently together, if they can get Mac a little better, they might not lose the rest of the games the rest of the way, as most of us had had it happening. Although, as I said, I had them for 9 wins.
Yep.
But the other big thing I'm really curious about, and as well as the defense has played, and again, they've played great, with the exception of losing their mind to 2 mobile quarterbacks. I really want to see how they fare against Buffalo with a healthy Josh Allen throwing the football and running. I want to see how they do against these offenses with elite weapons. Cincinnati is in that category. Minnesota is in that category. So while I think, again, the defense looked great last year too, at this point,
Right.
with the exception of that Dallas game.
Yep.
But again, elite receivers. We'll see how if the defense, but the whole key is going to be the pass rush. And if my guy Matt Judon turns into a pumpkin like he did down the stretch last year, they have no chance.
Well, now he's got the bye week in the middle of the year. He's been playing out of his mind. He had 3 sacks against Indianapolis. Probably should have had 4. They had 9 sacks. They probably should have had 15. I mean, that team was wretched. And
that line was wretched.
Oh,
I mean,
what a
I
mess.
could have had a sack against them. I'm telling you.
Quentin Nelson's about the only good thing going for that team right now, and he's the left guard. Yeah, I agree with you. We actually did an exercise on Tuesday, Mike and I, and we went back through the games, and we kind of figured if they're gonna compete and they're gonna make the playoffs, they need to go. What did we say, Mike? 6-2, 5-3 down the stretch.
Right.
And I gave Mike a reason why they could beat every team except for one. What was the one, Mike? There was one that I told you Buffalo.
Buffalo.
I said we were
Buffalo.
going to lose to Buffalo, but I
that
gave
was
him a
pre-elbow.
Pre-elbow. And,
Pre-elbow.
it's funny, and that's kind of where I'm going with this, Karen, is that, all the things you just said, Oakland, one, not being good, and also
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas not being very good, and now placing 2 of their best weapons, Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow, on IR. You have Josh Allen, whose elbow is messed up. We may not see those elite offenses, and Mike made a face when you mentioned Minnesota being an elite offense, but Mike
they have elite receivers. They have elite
receivers. But Mike just thinks because it's going to be dark when we're playing against them that Kirk Cousins is going to piss his pants and we'll win that one anyway. So
he's 0 for Monday Night Football or something ridiculous like that. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's nighttime. It's Thursday night, so that this maybe there's a carryover from Monday to Thursday night. Where again,
he keep telling him it's Monday.
Right.
He has a terrible record in primetime. Terrible.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
But Joe, well, just to finish that thought real quick, the point of that thought was it's that part of the year where every Patriots fan says Bill's got him right where we want him.
Yeah. Well, again, is Jamar Chase going to be back by the time they play Cincinnati?
Right. And that offensive line is wretched too.
Right. So
is ours. So what's
So you go ahead, Karen.
I was just going to say, if the defense holds serve, it's more a matter of can the offense move the ball and score, or is Nick Folk's leg going to fall off, from kicking 500 field goals, right? I mean, that's the whole thing.
He's the team MVP right now. Big kick, Nick.
Yep.
So you mentioned the defense, and I just feel like we've been suckered into this 3 out of the last 4 years, right? The 2019, I mean, we had Sam Darnold seeing ghosts, and we're the boogeymen, and then what happened there? And last year. So is this an illusion, or are they actually this good on defense?
I don't have that answer. I want to see it. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not going to fall for the sucker bet again. I'm not going to say, wow, they've been so good now, and boy, oh boy, it's going to carry through the year. No. They have to play some legitimate offenses I mean, they've beaten up on all the first year, second year, bad offensive line teams, yada, yada. Okay, good. I mean, it's good that they have as opposed to, the one that they did was Chicago. But look at Chicago's gotten much better offensively since that game because, oh my God, I wonder what can happen if Justin Fields actually runs the football as opposed to throws the football.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Some light bulb finally went off in Chicago. So they're a completely different team because teams did the Patriots even entered that game thinking he wasn't going to run as much as he did because he hadn't all year. They weren't prepared for schemed quarterback runs. They weren't prepared for having him run so much, and he crushed them. Because guess what? He's good with the football. So, who do they play down the road like that? Well, the Arizona Kyler Murray, Josh Allen. But, beyond that.
Tua.
Yeah, well, he doesn't. Since his injuries, he hasn't run all that much. The other one who could run is the Jets quarterback. But
yeah, he can't throw against us, that's for sure.
Right. So maybe they'll try that tact with him since they don't want him throwing the ball against us. So I don't know. We'll see. But, for me, the barometer, the test pilot is Buffalo. They didn't make them punt last year, the last two times they played. So that to me, if they can make them punt, they're going in the right direction.
Right.
And not Case Keenum, Josh Allen.
Correct.
Right. Yep. There was one thing I want to talk more about on the offense before when it was the defensive side is because I'm hearing a lot and I'm reading a lot of people saying that it's not all Mac's fault, but the wide receivers can't get open. In 2020, the wide receivers couldn't get open because there just wasn't that much talent on the field. Is it fair to say, in your opinion, that the reason why they're having a hard time getting open this year is because they're not being schemed correctly? Or is it still they're just not as talented as they should be?
I think some of them, it's like, I have no idea what the heck happened to Kendrick Bourne. I mean, where'd he go?
Right.
Where did he go? He was such a good player in that offense. Well, note the words, in that offense last year. And it's funny, they're going closer toward the offense he had been in. And now he's, it just boggles the mind. It really does. And, but it's not just him. Hunter Henry had 9 touchdown passes. You know how many he has now? 1. He's regressed. Yep. He was one of the best things you had. Both him and Bourne were among the best things. Now, did they all take stupid pills? Did they all forget how to get open?
I mean, is it scheming though? And that, to kind of reiterate Mike's question, I mean, they just, do they have too many weapons that they can't wield them all at the same time? I mean, they brought the tight ends in, and I said this Tuesday night to Mike, they brought the tight ends in to try and mimic that Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski style of offense. They brought in Kendrick Bourne to be that style of guy that Julian Edelman, Troy Brown, Wes Welker was for so long, and then some, because he can do so much more than that. Another guy we haven't seen is Montgomery in the backfield. He's still on the team hurt. Somewhere.
He's hurt. But
and really the only guy who's been utilized correctly is Rhamondre Stevenson. So why do you have all this money on the field and you're just going to use the second? Now, listen, I love Rhamondre Stevenson. He's probably my favorite player on the entire team. But why are you misusing? And this is kind of rhetorical and going back to you. Why aren't you using these guys? I don't think they took the stupid pills. I think it just goes back to the.
I'm gonna answer your question with a question. If you gave Sean McVay these weapons, if you gave Josh McDaniels this assembly, if you gave, I don't know, any offensive
Brian Daboll.
yes. If you
Frank
give
Reich.
Brian Daboll this assortment of receivers, tight ends, and running backs, do you think that they would be as stagnant as they
No.
No?
No.
Everybody would be
No.
touching the ball. They'd find a way to get to him.
Of course.
I mean, and again, we did this the other night. We went off on a tangent on the team, the Colts. But let's do it with the Giants, because look at what Brian Daboll has made Daniel Jones look like, and made that kind of pieced together receiving core look like. And of course, they have Saquon Barkley. He's one of the best backs in the league when he's healthy. He's kept him healthy. So clearly, Brian Daboll is doing something correct, and he's spreading the ball around. Evan Ingram looks like an NFL tight end again.
Right.
So Bill Belichick is supposed to be the best coach in NFL history. What's he doing?
Adding on to that before Karen goes, I think we talked about this, I'm sure, months ago towards the beginning of the season. Just based on the personnel that they have right now on the Patriots, don't you think Tom Brady would be quite happy with what he has right now?
Sure. Well, I was just going to bring up the year they had Moss, Stallworth, and Welker. Was anyone missing in terms of catch? Somehow they spread that ball around, didn't they?
Yep.
Well, Moss got the lion's share. Everybody was involved. And that was the beauty of it. You might have had a superstar in Randy Moss, but Wes Welker's role, or Stallworth they were still significant parts of that offense, and why they almost ran the table completely. So
Almost.
I'm sorry, there's no such thing as too many weapons.
No.
There's no such thing as too many good players. No such thing.
I guess the MVP of this entire S storm, isn't it Jacoby Myers?
Debacle.
Yeah, because
Debacle.
Well,
Jacoby Myers has been consistent since Cam Newton. Like he's leading in targets and leading in catches this year, even in this high school offense.
He gets better every single year. There's no question. I mean, he gets open, and again, we question he wasn't the prototype of slot receiver that they had with Edelman and Welker and Troy Brown, and he didn't fit the profile except in one way. And in that one way is this: he gets open. He gets open. That's the whole thing. And he's dependable. And looking at the last game, I think Rhamondre Stevenson was targeted more. I know this for a fact. Targeted more than any receiver. And then the other guys were like 1 or 2 targets. Just that like screams of the issue that they're having.
So where's
Jacoby
that
Myers?
Sorry. So
Jacoby Myers has 52 targets this year and has 40 catches. He is an efficient wide receiver, and he's always open. And to your point, Karen, the number 2 receiver on the Patriots is Rhamondre Stevenson. 43 targets, 35 receptions.
Jacoby Myers has, again, I have all these numbers in my head, but I think he's caught 15 passes for first downs.
Yep.
That's more than anybody else of the receivers has in terms of catches, period. Honest to God. So,
it's just not good.
Yeah, when you look at these, I know stats are for losers, and stats mean nothing to these coaches.
Numbers don't lie, Karen.
But when you look at the disparity of and again, just every receiver but Myers being a non-factor, DeVante Parker came up with a few catches here and there. But
they're misusing him too.
Right. But the other thing is, so he makes these catches and maybe draws attention. Are they utilizing the other receivers after, DeVante draws attention? No.
Right.
And the other thing about the tight ends is, I think their production is down. Maybe not Jonnu Smith, because anything above one reception was going to be good for him. They've had to keep the tight ends into block because the offensive line has been so miserable. So, and I think that's probably impacted Henry the most. So if we're wondering what happened to him, well, he's there helping out Ime Udoka, who can't block on the right side.
Well, you can't keep the referee to keep his flag in his
I
pocket.
found this on the web for helping out Isaiah Wynn, who can't block on the right side.
Uh-oh.
Who's that?
What was that?
I think
That
Siri
was Karen.
just jumped in on me.
I have an Android, so it's not me.
Yeah, I mean, Siri jumped in on it. Was like,
That's
want to
like
hear why Isaiah Wynn can't block?
Does
Does Siri have an answer? Maybe she can coach him up.
I shouldn't have blocked the answer. So maybe Siri would have been helpful.
The world may never know.
That's the first time that's ever happened to me.
So good.
That's awesome. That's outstanding. Craig, leave that in.
Yeah.
And
That's incredible. But it blows my mind watching this team. And I don't know. I mean, I think we all know the answer to this question, but it leads to a lot of the solutions that we're looking for in terms of answers. Is Bill this dense and stubborn that he's going to try and do this thing where he has this elite defense and this offense that isn't producing much to try and win, to try and prove a point? Like, is this something Bill's going to try and do?
I don't know about the dense part, but he is stubborn. And
Arrogant.
That's a better word than
Yeah.
dense. Dense is a
Yeah.
bad word. Arrogant's good.
And again, as I've told you many times, I think he devalues the quarterback position. And maybe that was a better word, and devalues what it takes to call an offense in this NFL. Like back in the Stone Age when he started, what did they ran the ball. They would throw occasionally, they ran the ball. There was none of this complexity of, what we're seeing now, 5 wides or motion and all this, all the advances that they've made. It's because it had to happen. It's an offense-driven league. So you have guys like Sean McVay, and Kyle Shanahan, who have devised, different types of schemes and offenses that are now being copied. Well, if Bill wants to copy them, how about having a coach who actually has coached that offense before?
Well, and that's the
Just
thing,
a
right?
thought.
Like, yeah, and it's so this is something that just popped into my head, and maybe here's a question I'll pose or an observation. Maybe Bill's only as good as his offensive coordinator, because in his history with the Patriots, he's had Charlie Weiss, Bill O'Brien, Josh McDaniels, and now his offensive coordinator is seemingly Matt Patricia. So, like you said, having a guy that can run that offense or coach that offense is probably a good idea. But maybe while he's such a defensive guru, he's only as good as his offensive coordinator because he always had one that knew how to manage that, and he put it in the hands of those guys.
Well, that's true, but I've also been told by various people, former
Oh, my.
quarterbacks who weren't the star quarterback, that Bill had no problem telling Charlie, "No, we're going to run here. We're going to run here," or I see an opening. I think you should take it. Like Bill wasn't afraid to put in his 2 cents to the offensive coordinator and
Yeah.
with Josh too. But there's a difference in that than, again, if he sees something, pointing something out, then actually calling the offense. And again, it's Patricia sink or swim the way it looks. Although, who knows? Maybe they'll change it up after the bye. We'll see. I don't.
So that brings up two things real quick, Mike, on the first one. I'll get back to my other point. I'll let you go after this. But like, maybe that's the difference here is that Bill O'Brien, Charlie Weiss, and Josh McDaniels would take those criticisms or suggestions and say, yeah, you know what? All right, fine. We'll run, but we'll run out of this formation, this play. Whereas maybe he says those things to Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, and they look at each other like, what did he just say? Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's the difference because clearly there's an ineptitude on the offensive side of the ball that was not there last year.
Right. And now, even though, it happens all the time, opposing linebackers have figured out the plays and know them before they're going to happen.
Max tipping his pitches.
Because they heard it in Pop Warner.
Right.
Like that's the offense.
Again, they've now had to narrow the scope of the offense down so much that they only do a few things and they don't do any of them well. So, and, I also think, Steph Gilmore might have had a hand in last week's, telling him, well, when you see them do this, they're probably going to do that. When you see them do that, they're probably going to do that. So I'm sure he not only tried to coach up the quarterback, who was a lost cause anyway, but I'm sure, he had a few words with the guys up front, little tips to look for. And, the Patriots fell right into it.
And man, what a situation that guy's in Indianapolis, huh?
So not to get into that, but kind of to talk a little bit about it. We know, you know better than us. We speculate that Bill loves coaches that come over here on the cheap. With the offensive struggling the way that it is, what would he have to do, or how much would he have to be convinced to get a guy like Frank Reich to come in here and lead this offense? Because he's going to be paid for the next 3 years. Would he ever do that?
Well, I think I like Frank Reich as a coach. I think he's a raw deal. And I like him as an offensive coach. And I don't think it's as simple as, well, somebody else is paying him, so Bill will bring him in. I wish that was the case. I think that the type of offense that Frank Reich runs is a little more counter to what the Patriots are trying to do. So if they bring him in, again, that's once again another new offense to learn once again. And I'm not sure they would go in that direction. Again, it's a proven thing. You make a quarterback learn a new offense every year and go through all the trials and tribulations every year. It's hard for them to advance. Tom Brady had the same offense for 20 years.
Yep.
The coordinators changed, the offense didn't change, or the basis of the offense was the same. Bill O'Brien tweaked it, Josh McDaniels tweaked it, but the premise, the basis of it, and the language of it was the same all throughout Tom's time. And he will be the first to tell you that was an advantage for him over other quarterbacks who've had their offensive coordinators changing every year or every other year, or the head coach. The continuity was important.
To that point, though, and to what you said earlier, right, is let's just say we're living in this bizarre world where Bill hires a competent offensive coach. And even if he's just there to call the same plays that they're being called now, wouldn't Mac Jones have more confidence in taking that from a guy like Frank Reich as opposed to Matt Patricia?
Of course, you would think that. But it's Mac Jones broken now to the point where he's not fixable. That's the question.
I mean, this is why, I don't know if you remember this, Karen, but we had you on right after the 2021 draft. And I said I wanted Justin Fields because the thing about Alabama quarterbacks in my opinion, is you've seen their ceiling. They have the best facilities, the best coordinators, the best talent. Very few Alabama quarterbacks in the last 25 years have come out and done better than they did in college. Justin Fields with this offense would be fine because he'll just run his ass off and he won't get killed like Mac Jones did. So do you think Bill's onto something with devaluing quarterbacks? Because Bailey Zappi, to Joe's point, as everybody else's, he's looked better. So what do you do at the end of this year if this turns into an 8-9 year? Does Mac have a starting job next year here?
I don't have the answer to that question.
Can I go a step further with that? Because I brought this up to Mike, and with the bye week now, do you think there's a chance that they go to Bailey Zappi for the Jets game?
No.
Okay.
But if Mac continues on this downward spiral, they might have to bring Bailey back from the bullpen. But again, he too has been exposed a little. Once you get
Right. Absolutely,
you get film on the guy and you know what they're running with him, and all of a sudden, because of the tendencies, geez, the hands are all the way, and he's getting balls batted down and he's getting intercepted, and I think that they know what Bailey Zappi is. So,
Yep.
But does that mean they wouldn't go to him? No, of course.
Yeah.
But again, you have a first round pick, 15th overall, won a championship at Alabama, coached by Saban, did extremely well there, and after a year and a half, he's out the door or out the window or in the crapper. It's just, I don't know. That's just kind of tough to swallow.
Well, I mean, we've seen so many times Tom Brady, a 6th round pick, Bailey Zappi, a 4th round pick. We've seen first round busts, Ryan Leaf. We've seen first round home runs, Peyton Manning. We've seen it all. We've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly from every round. We've seen, and I brought up Ryan Suckup, who in his draft was
kicker again.
Yep, always was Mr. Irrelevant, and he's become one of the most consistent kickers in the league. And are we overvaluing draft positions? Like, sure, Mac was picked 15th, but Sean McVay laughed when they picked him.
You mean Cole Strange?
Well,
Cole
take
Strange.
away his draft status. Did the Patriots get to the playoffs or didn't they last year with him at quarterback?
They did.
Did they win 7 straight with him at quarterback? Or
They
8
did.
They
straight?
did.
Okay. So there's some evidence, that there might be something there with Mac Jones. If you put him in the right situation. He's not in the right situation right now.
Pick your brain on something like this, and I'm probably going to go on for a minute because I've thought about this for a long time, not just today. But so you brought up the offense about a couple of minutes ago. Tom Brady didn't become the Tom Brady people think as Tom Brady until like 2007. People forget in 2005 he almost got benched for Vinny Testaverde. To me, the whole thing changed as soon as they brought in Randy Moss and they brought in an elite thing. People forget since like 2000. I think maybe they don't forget, but they maybe don't put enough emphasis on the fact that Tom Brady always had an elite weapon with him from 2007 to basically 2018 when Gronk finally got hurt and that whole thing with Bill and the Lions and stuff like that. And then I look at around the league. I look specifically at Tua. I look at Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts. And those are two guys that I thought for a while, and a lot of people around the league thought that, like, well, these guys are going to be bust. They're going to be out of the league in a couple of years the way they're going right now. People thought that last year or 2 years ago with Tua, and maybe last year, Brady was going to end up going down there. And then with Tua and Jalen Hurts specifically, obviously two Alabama quarterbacks, there's the theme I'm going with here. and also Joe Burrow down in Cincinnati. You bring in their court, you bring in weapons from systems they're familiar with, and most importantly, they're good offensive players. Are we missing that in New England?
Yeah, of course. They don't. New England doesn't have anyone that can touch to his receivers. But that doesn't mean you can't be smart and scheme a good offense and if the quarterback is smart and hits his targets, you're still going to put up points. I mean, Brady might have always had Gronk or whatever, but he might have had chicken meal on the other parts. So, and for the longest time, he was able to do more with less. A lot of teams do more with less.
Right.
Belichick, but it also goes back to Belichick's belief in good defense, great defense, and an offense that, can score 20 to 30 points a game, and you're in good shape.
Yep.
You don't need Tom Brady, and you don't need 15 stud weapons. If you have good weapons, a good quarterback, and here's the part he's missing out, someone who knows how to call an offense.
Yep.
Along with this very good defense, you're going to go somewhere.
Also, Craig, in 2005, Brady was still throwing to Deion Branch, David Gibbons, Kevin Falk, and they got bounced by the Broncos. The next year was the real test when they let those two go. They only had Rashae Caldwell,
right,
and they still made it to the AFC title game. The difference here is what you're seeing is, to Karen's point, as long as you could score like 23 points a game and you could and you had an adequate defense, you were going to go far. This team this year is averaging, I think, is it 19.8 points per game? And that's not even real, because 4 of their touchdowns that they've scored this year were on defense.
Right.
And a lot of their points are 3-pointers as well.
Right. Well, again, if you go back to those early Brady years, he was, again, more the game manager. And that's kind of what Mac was last year, right? Game manager. If a play was needed to be made, if they were down, he would have to make it. But that's the other part you don't know. Well, the other theme this year is if they get behind, they don't have the type of offense that can overcome deficits, especially fairly large ones. Unlike a Buffalo, unlike a Kansas City, unlike even a Miami, because they have explosive offenses. The Patriots don't have that. So, but I don't think they're making the best. They're not utilizing what they have to their best ability, which is odd with the Bill Belichick coach team, because he tends to get more out of less himself.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So I think we've pretty much done as much as we can with the Patriots. I do want to get your take on one thing before we part ways, Karen. So Tom Brady is newly single. How much longer does he play? Do you think? And tell me why. Because I believe he's going to Miami next year. Tell me why he isn't.
There's a better situation somewhere else.
You think?
I don't know. How about San Francisco?
They don't have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle.
They have, but they do have Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, until he blows out a knee again in week 2.
And you have Deebo Samuel, and there's a couple of weapons there.
Who's the tight end that I can't? Kittle.
Oh, yeah.
George Kittle.
George Kittle. That's pretty good.
It's not bad.
That's pretty good. But I don't know. It's hard to tell with Brady now. Is he gonna, because of the split, is he gonna stay in the East Coast because that's where his kids are? Or is he gonna be all the way out in the West Coast and have a tougher time seeing his kids? So That's why kind of Miami makes sense, or somewhere closer.
Jeez, Mike, you must not have kids.
And to stick it to Bill just twice a year. I mean, because Tua's fine. Like, he's a good quarterback. Can you imagine what Brady would do with that offense?
Of
Like,
course, but haven't you been listening to their mutual love fest lately, Brady and Belichick?
It's almost as
Yeah.
bad as the ass kissing that Mac Jones and Matt Patricia have been doing with each other.
I think obviously, I think Miami was always one of the choices, and obviously it was looked into. But when he was a free agent, he didn't go there, did he?
Was that because of the collusion? Could he have gone there and not risk Miami getting losing a draft pick?
I don't know. Good question. But again, if they were doing all this behind the scenes stuff, why didn't he go there? When he was a free bird. He was free.
I think it's remarkably different now. I mean, you look at that skills, those skill players then, and then you look at it now. I just think, because I fully believe that after what we saw last week, and I know that he's not having a great year, but that last drive with 45 seconds left, he still got it.
It was vintage, yeah.
Yeah, like he hasn't slipped.
Well, it was almost like, okay, we have to win this game. I'm going to win this game with a bunch of schleps. That's fine. Someone just has to hold on to the ball once.
That's it.
Right? And the tight end, who I don't even know who he is. I don't think anyone knows who he is. Caught the ball.
Wasn't Cameron great?
It was not great. No, it was not. But there must have been like 16 drop balls in that game.
Yeah.
Plenty of them in the end zone.
Yeah, I know.
So again, I'm surprised he hasn't like completely lost his mind. But he still, got them to win. And, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. Seattle's doing pretty well, and they're way out in Germany this week. So,
playing against Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Right. So, Geno Smith.
Yeah, nobody saw that
quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah. Well,
helps when you throw DK Metcalf.
Right now, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
This is all very true. But, the AFC, even me, I was guilty. Oh my God, there's going to be like 10, 15 teams that are so good. And what is it? A handful? Less than that?
Maybe.
I mean, a lot of teams have just been Denver, terrible. Las Vegas, terrible. The Chargers really don't look good, even though they're 5-3. So there's 3 teams right there. I mean, if the AFC East is like your best division, which we never would have thought, but guess what? They are.
Every team's above 500.
Is it
possible the Bengals haven't been good either.
Yeah.
Oh, the Ravens are going to walk right into a division win there.
They can't hold a lead.
No, but they're still going to walk right into a division.
And the other top division leader, Tennessee, they have no quarterback. They literally have no quarterback.
That's because they traded away all of that quarterback's receivers.
So
Malik Willis can't throw.
Oh, I meant Ryan Tannehill, but Malik Willis definitely can't throw.
Can't either. So, but at least he could complete more than 5 passes a game. I mean, I don't know, but look. Look what good coaching did in that game. Somehow Mike Vrabel kept them toe-to-toe Kansas City when he had no business doing so. So, good coaching can get you someplace too.
So, well, you mentioned San Francisco, and I know you're just floating things out there. What happens with
Isn't that my job?
It is your job to float things out there. Thanks, Matt. What happens with Jimmy? Where's he going?
Well, he's free agent.
So here's what's going to happen then, Karen. What's going to happen is the Patriots are going to see Mac Jones just can't do it. They're going to trade him away. They're going to get peanuts for him. Jimmy's going to sign here. Tom's going to go to San Francisco, and everybody's going to be happy.
Kumbaya. It's
Kumbaya.
kumbaya.
That's it right there. And Josh McDaniels comes back as offensive coordinator because
They'll be paid for it.
Mark Davis is going to fire him.
Now they'll fire him next year, not this year.
All right. So last thing before we go, Karen, you have the last word.
Can I just butt in for 1 second? I'm sorry.
I mean, you're the producer. I guess you could.
I guess I could. Karen, tell me there's a 0.000% chance that Tom Brady comes back to New England next year. She's hesitating.
Not a one-day contract either. That doesn't count.
Yeah. It depends. I would say if it's Belichick, absolutely not.
I had to throw it out there because that's a conspiracy.
Hang on now.
But the wild card is Kraft.
So based on what you just said, do you think tell me it's a 0.000% chance that Bill Belichick isn't gone after this season?
Oh, he's not gone.
No, he's not gone.
Mike, don't sit over there and be all.
I mean, but he won 7 games with Cam Newton. He won 10 games with a rookie, and he's last in the division right now, but he's 5-4. He really hasn't done anything on paper to lose his job.
And again,
I can give you about 5 things he's done on paper to lose his job.
But we also, pointed out they could get to 9 or 10 wins somehow.
Right.
And I also think his jumping George Halas and being 21 or 2 or whatever it is right now away from Don Shula, I don't think Kraft would want to deal with, firing the winningest coach of, or
right.
just short of that. So I don't know. That's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. It's a country business.
I don't think so.
I can't see Kraft doing it.
The most telling thing was Jonathan Kraft's interview a couple weeks ago saying that Bill has earned the right to pick the players and the coaches. And, there's no love lost between those two.
No.
So, good.
Yeah. I mean, but he said they support him and they're not going to, what he's done, he's earned. He's earned the right to do what he wants.
What do you think the breaking point will be, if there is one?
3-14.
Well, get the record and then see you later.
So, 3-4 more years?
3 years of mediocrity, fellas.
3 years.
Yeah. So, Karen, gun to head. Do the New England Patriots make the playoffs?
Jesus, Mike.
I didn't say I was holding the gun. I just said gun to head. Do the New England Patriots make the playoffs this year?
You really think you're getting a pie after that?
Seriously?
Yes.
I'll send you my address. You can send it my way.
My answer is no.
No. Are they the only team from the AFC East that does not make the playoffs?
Yes.
Oh, I just love that.
See, I was going to ask you if you thought the entire AFC East is going to make the playoffs this year. Guess not.
So
I'm actually going out on a limb with the Jets.
Right.
But their defense is so good. It's so good.
And young.
That if he doesn't mess up, again, they're going to win a lot of games just because of that defense. And, and that's how they got on the roll in the first place. It hurts them that the running back got hurt and is done for the year because that allowed them to keep the ball out of the quarterback's hands, Zach Wilson's hands. But if they can reestablish some semblance of a running game and their defense can basically shut teams down or keep them to 10 points and under, they'll win they're going to win their share of games. And they might just because everybody else is so bad, I think they could get in.
Yeah.
And I think Miami's offense is too good not to as well.
Yeah, and they bolstered the defense by bringing in Bradley Chubb at the deadline. So
Right. So they're going to get in. And the Patriots, just because of what I'm seeing offensively, if that somehow miraculously fixes, if by some miracle after the bye they figure it out and things kind of go back to sort of where they were last year in terms of a confidence level with Mac, or Mac having confidence, or whatever it is, if they find some semblance of that, they're going to win their share of games too. And for the same reasons we laid out, the teams that they're playing aren't as good as we thought.
That's it. Well, Karen, thank you so much for spending part of your bye week with us. We really appreciate it. You are by far our favorite guest, and we just love having you.
Well, I love being on with you guys.
You know how long it took her to respond to my email? 5 minutes.
5 minutes. And the moment he texted us back, we were like, you know what? Done. Thursday night, 8:30.
Yep.
See you.
Hey, where's the champagne, Craig? Come on. Where's
I do live across the street from a liquor store. I'll be.
you
All
did you did promise
I
champagne.
did. You're right. I was good.
What is the context behind that? Champagne and apple pie? Is that what we're doing here?
Ooh, that's good.
Oh,
Apples
I
and
don't-
champagne. Yes,
All right.
that's a good
Can't-
blend.
you can't really follow that up. So for Craig D'Alessandro, Joe Malkin, thank you so much, Karen Guregian, for coming on the 617 podcast. I'll be picking up the pie tomorrow, and we will talk to you next week.